Starstruck.
Well, here we are again. Oh, fuck that.
Cut.
Cut.
Take one.
Take one. Let's start again here. Well, and hello, and welcome to Joyride. I am Jared Brandon Flandy, and
I am Adam Mendenhall.
And we are going to tell you a story about all things that move, whether it's steam, wheels, or if it flies. Now, in this case today, though, we're going to really be switching it up. Okay, so the last hint I gave, Adam, if you recall in the episode, was do not have skis or wheels or anything like that, and it didn't fly. So in this case, we're going to be covering a ship.
Which is a different spin. Something that floats this time.
Something
but
that
still
floats.
moves and can move slow or fast.
Which is, it's probably slower than faster, but they move anyway. I do have, before I start, though, I do have another mini Joyride commentary I want to give. I was driving through McMinnville, and you know that Taco Bell that's in town there?
I do.
No joke, I saw a little old man on his little power scooter going through the drive-thru. He literally got up off of the power scooter, walked to the microphone at the menu, then got back on it, and then just drove up to the next window.
Well, I guess, the drive-thru, we think of only cars going through there, but I guess it's for a variety of vehicles, you might say.
And on the next episode, we'll be covering power scooters. No.
And their effect on Taco Bell franchises. Yeah.
All right, but the script I have for this particular one was this is a very English themed episode, so that's why we're drinking our red ale at the
of course.
And also here, if you want to crunch in the audience's ears, there's some shortbread cookies as well.
Oh, pure butter shortbread cookies. Very authentic.
Yeah, I was trying to set the mood. So. All right, now this is a story that a lot of people might not be super familiar with, but this really is a big part of transportation history. So, are we ready?
We are.
Okay, here we go. This is it. Britannia rules the waves, the SS Great Britain. Since the beginning of time, humans have always been curious about what is around the next corner. Humans have crossed the unknown by foot for most of our history. As time progressed, we started to rely upon our faithful friend, the horse, to travel across land, and the ever-changing winds from the heavens to fill the sails of ships for thousands of years. However, everything would change when steam technology began to be widely used during the Industrial Revolution. Many brilliant inventors contributed to this revolution that Frederick Ingalls himself had coined, but only one man took the most advanced ideas of his time and applied it to everything imaginable. Isambard Kingdom Brunel.
Interesting name.
Very.
You think about, names like Smith and stuff, but as we go back in time, how much more illustrious some of those names were and how they rolled off the tongue.
Isambard is a little different. Kingdom, his parents were cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Brunel was born into engineering, speaking of parents. His father, Mark, would imprint his own legacy upon the modern world with his own forward thinking. At the age of 19, Brunel served as his father's assistant during an engineering feat that was the first of its kind. Literally thousands of people today in the city of London embark from Wapping Station, that is part of the London Underground, the subway system. Little do they know they are traveling through a piece of history. This part of the underground system travels underneath the Thames River, which means during the time of Mark Brunel, it was the first tunnel to travel underwater.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's the whole episode too. Is just the London Underground. It was the world's first subway
system. Yeah.
It was steam trains in tunnels.
Different era of power.
Mark's teenage son would cheat death for the first time when water flooded the tunnel during construction. Fortunately, he was saved by a man by the name of Mr. Beamish, and that's all is known, as far as I'm aware of. If Mr. Beamish had not been able to save the young Brunel, the world very likely could be a much worse place in the present day. Now, when I was writing this, on my mother's side, there was some Beamishes, so I don't know if this guy could be a very distant relation of mine.
Somewhere in the tree, perhaps?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yep. Brunel would have one of the most fruitful engineering careers the world has ever seen. He was a Renaissance man with a quizzical face and a stovepipe hat, and was involved with nearly every form of transportation technology during the Victorian period. Big ass hat, no joke.
Reminiscent of some of those photos from back in that era when you do catch those from time to time.
Yeah. He would build bridges that spanned distances that never had been reached before. He would make trains both faster and more comfortable, and would build ships on a scale that was nothing short of awe-inspiring. For most of maritime history, ships used sails in order to harness the wind that nature provided as a source of momentum. As time-honored as sailing is, the Industrial Revolution changed how humans traveled across their planet on a dramatic scale never seen before. In fact, more innovations had occurred in the 19th century than the 10,000 years that preceded it.
Wow. That puts it in perspective there. Not much of a change in that period of time.
The steam engine, of course, was one of these innovations. They were used to power machinery and other land vehicles, but it would take a long time before they were starting to be used to power ships. With steam providing momentum, ships were now able to travel to the furthest corners of the world than ever before. Now, since you are the technical guru, Adam, generally, how does a steam engine work?
It's a heat engine that performs mechanical work using steam as its working fluid, essentially. So it is a external combustion engine where that working fluid is separated from the combustion portion of it. And typically speaking, it's either a coal-fired or wood-fired boiler that heats up a reservoir of water that produces steam that goes through a series of pipes or tubes into a cylinder that has a piston and moves it back and forth. And in regards to the scale we're talking, this would be a very large cylinder since it's powering a boat or, different types of boats. Yep.
Now, some of these were powered by Coke. Is that correct?
Could be.
Okay, well, Coke was a type of it. What was Coke? It was. We're not talking about cocaine. It was something they used to burn to make steam. But so it's not cocaine. Yeah, that'd be funny. That'd be like the Scarface Express. Yeah,
that would be.
Okay. Thank you very much, Adam, for that. Even though Brunel had already achieved notoriety in bridges and railroads, he now wanted to set his sights upon the high seas. The first ship he would design was the SS Great Western. It was an ocean-going vessel that featured 2 paddle wheels on either side of the hull to propel it through the water.
Wow.
I mean, that was so think kind of like like Mark Twain, Mississippi River kind of stuff.
Yep, that's a good image.
The Great Western would have a successful career and sailed around the world for 8 years from 1838 to 1846. As brilliant as this ship was, it would be Brunel's next creation that would change ocean travel forever. The Great Western Steamship Company and Brunel would announce the new ship in 1838. With pen in hand, Brunel sketched a vessel that would be much larger than his previous ship, but it was not its size that would make it unique. It was how it should be built. It would feature an iron hull, which would be cheaper and lighter than using wood. Brunel would also do away with the paddle wheels. He would suggest something far more audacious. A screw propeller.
Oh.
Now, this is the first time this is being done.
Yeah.
This has not been done before.
No, moving away from that traditional paddle-style wheel to something a little more innovative.
And additionally, it has the iron hull as well.
Mm-hmm.
Even though both these advancements had been experimented with before, the ship would be the first to feature both. This futuristic ship would be called the SS Great Britain. The name was fitting. The British Empire was the largest in history. At its zenith, it covered a quarter of the world and would not become obsolete until the sun finally set upon the empire in the 1950s.
Wow.
With so much British territory around the globe, a ship that could get to these territories at a faster rate than the other ships of the time would be of great benefit, of course. With the many engineering successes already on Brunel's resume, the Royal Navy showed great interest in the designs of the Great Britain. Consequently, they even allowed Brunel to experiment with existing naval ships so he could perfect his design. Can you imagine just getting the USS Ronald Reagan just to be able to play around?
Yeah, no kidding, right? That would be, gosh.
Oh, I'd take that thing right into Portland and pull up right into some Bermuda or some Margarita dock somewhere.
That'd be appropriate.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't. Yeah. Be funny, though. In 1839, a dry dock was built in the city of Bristol. This dock would be the construction site of the Great Britain. Brunel was not known for taking time off to relax, on a side note. He would regularly work 18 hours a day and usually fall asleep on the sofa in his study, only to be found a few hours later with a cigar still burning in his hand.
Oh, my gosh. Talk about workaholic.
You just see this man running out in flames.
yeah, you do. That's the image of somebody burning their house down. You know,
putting out his coat. I'm fine.
Oh my God.
He was known to be a perfectionist by obsessing over every detail during the construction phases of his projects. Naturally, he was not considered to be the most pleasant person to work for, since he usually pushed his workers just as hard as himself. Despite some of the turmoil this caused, the ship was launched on July 19th, 1843, 4 years after construction had initially began. So they spent some time on it, obviously.
Yeah.
As the tugboat was towing the ship into open water, the women who were going to christen the ship, the woman who was going to christen the ship accidentally dropped the bottle due to the turbulence of the launch. Prince Albert, husband of Queen Victoria, after noticing the incident and with some quick thinking, threw another bottle that was close to him, which smashed against the side of the ship. Too much fanfare. Now, apparently this is an alleged story, but
wow, can you imagine that, missing it and going, gosh, where's another bottle? We can't, you can't botch the christening,
he just basically, the Prince Albert, he just grabs someone's beer out of their hand and just chucks it. Oh, hey, it's mine.
Make something connect.
As the crowd looked upon the completed Great Britain, Her Majesty was hard to ignore. She was 100 feet longer than any ship before, measuring a distance of 323 feet and weighing over 3,000 tons.
Whoa.
There were a few other minor problems during the launch, since the Great Britain was 5 feet 6 inches wider than the dock.
Wow.
Despite the width problem, she was ready to set sail for her main voyage, so they did manage to get it out of there somehow.
That's amazing, yeah. I get stuck.
Oi, you didn't build the dock wide enough.
Yeah, Jesus.
Thought of everything except that. In January of 1845, the Great Britain left Bristol. She moved through the sea with the help of the revolutionary propeller that was powered by an engine that featured pistons that were 6 feet 8 inches in diameter. During this early part of the voyage, she hit a storm that would have destroyed most vessels, but it only caused minimal damage to the futuristic ship.
Wow.
She traveled from Bristol to London and on to Liverpool before embarking across the Atlantic to New York. The logbook from this initial journey has been lost to time, so we're not sure how many people first sailed upon the Great Britain, but we do know she burned 70 to 80 tons of coal a day.
Wow.
In other words, she certainly was in a hurry.
That gives you an idea, especially 6 feet in diameter on those cylinders or those pistons. That's a huge surface area to fill. So that
that's relatively small by today's standards, but back then that's enormous.
Oh, it is.
It was never heard of.
No.
By the time she reached New York, the Great Britain had traveled 3,300 miles in 14 days and 21 hours at an average speed of 9 knots, that was booking.
That was booking back then.
Because there's those old ships, they would take at least a month.
They would, yeah.
Those sail ships, yeah.
And you better hope you have some good wind behind you.
It would take nearly a month for a conventional sail-powered vehicle to cross the Atlantic, and the Great Britain had cut that time in half. However, like most people, the life of the SS Great Britain would have its darker periods. The 5th voyage would end in disaster. The captain of the ship did not take notice of the lighthouse off the coast of Northern Ireland, and with the sounds of metal scraping and screams of shock from passengers, the ship dramatically ran aground at Dundrum Bay in 1846.
My gosh.
How do you not see a lighthouse?
Yeah.
I guess they were electric back then. Maybe they weren't as good, but
or maybe they weren't obviously as bright, a little more dim back then. But I mean, that's your key signaling point. I mean,
or you just saw Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson in there. Anyway, never mind.
Oh, well, that's a different movie.
Okay. Brunel had managed to save his beloved ship, but by doing so, it bankrupted the Great Western Steamship Company. Afterward, it was then sold to Gibbs, Bright and Company. Sounds more like a convenience store to me.
It does. Gibbs and Bright.
The new owners thoroughly refitted the ship, and in 1852, she began the arduous journey to the far-flung continent of Australia. The journey took 82 days, which was fast for the time, but the ship probably would have made port in Melbourne even faster if it had not ran out of coal and had to refuel in the middle of the voyage.
Wow.
So just fueling it obviously is a problem because it takes so much of it.
Huge task, especially have them do it mid-voyage, especially.
In order to avoid such inconveniences, another one of her archaic masts was removed, and she was fitted with improved boiler technology for future trips. By modern standards, life aboard the Great Britain would be considered Spartan, but for the time she was more comfortable and luxurious than most of the other ships at the time. Many immigrants would start new lives in Australia by sailing on the Great Britain. Life on board had been preserved in the diary of Alan Gilmore, a teenage boy who was traveling with his family to Australia with the hopes of finding gold in the fabled continent. Alan would sit on his cramped bed, his face in a state of concentration as he was writing in his diary about the accommodations of the ship. And we do have excerpts from that diary. I'm going to try my best British accent here. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Our berths are pretty well ventilated, but very confined and dark. The stateroom, as they please to call it, allotted to us holds 4 persons. The distance between our berths for the purposes of dressing is 2 foot broad and 6 feet long, so confined that only one can dress at once, and even in the small space we have to build our luggage. Which I'm assuming he's meaning like something to sit on. Yeah.
Yes, some type of furniture. Yeah.
He would also describe how the passengers would pass the time during the long voyage. Quote, "A good deal of money has changed hands today, a number of wages having been made this morning as to the run. Considerable sums have changed hands, one person having lost £500 and another £120 in this way, besides innumerable smaller sums. A great number of things are also being raffled, some of which are a gold watch, rifle, double-barreled gun, single-barreled gun, 1 pair of pistols, knives, etc., etc."
Classic. The art of gambling never is timeless, I
guns.
guess. Yeah.
I also noticed just now that I sound slightly like Michael Caine when I'm doing that.
It is.
In 1855, the Great Britain would become a troop carrier for a short while, but soon returned to routine trips to Australia. The ship became so well known for these voyages that she was considered a temporary landmark when she reached the exotic shores of Australia. The ship became such an important symbol of British national pride that the ship became essentially a nation in itself. She even had her own newspaper, and the main editor and printer was also a member of the ship's regular crew.
Oh, wow. Gosh. Its own little mobile city on its own.
Basically.
Yeah.
In total, she completed 32 trips back and forth to Australia. With so many nautical miles covered, the poor girl was becoming old and tired. She was eventually brought back to Liverpool, where she sat idle for another 5 years. With time, she would be sold to new owners for the mere sum of £6,500.
Wow.
You get a small city for £6,500.
Yeah, exactly.
With new owners once again, she went through another series of changes. For the first time, the Great Britain was converted to be a mere sailing ship, and her hull was also covered with wood. Historians are not entirely clear why this was done. So they basically downgraded it.
Yeah, that's I guess an interesting, strange retrofit, you might say. Yeah, to an aging ship already, of course.
Yeah, and doing that right now would be very expensive with lumber prices.
Oh, you'd be cheaper with the steel hull.
Yeah. In 1886, her latest mission was to deliver a cargo load of coal to San Francisco, but alas, she did not make it. While attempting to round the Cape of Good Hope, the Great Britain was thrashed and beaten by yet another storm. After the storm, she was brought to the Falkland Islands for repair work, which are just right down outside Argentina. The deck was the only part of the ship that experienced any damage, but nonetheless, her owners thought she was not worth any repairs and unceremoniously wrote her off as a loss. Wow. She would reside in Port Stanley for another 47 years, where she was degraded to the point she was made to be a storage location for coal and wool. So a floating warehouse.
Yeah, essentially, just a floating warehouse.
I'm waiting for Jeff Bezos to have one of those.
Oh, a matter of time, I'm sure.
That'd be cool, though. After nearly half a century of performing this service, the decks of the ship began to leak, and it was decided that it was now finally her time. In the 1930s, Sparrow Cove in the Falkland Islands was designed as her final, In the 1930s, Sparrow Cove in the Falkland Islands was designated as her final resting place. After being towed to Sparrow Cove, she was beached and would lie to rot until nothing of her or her past and glory would ever exist again. Or so they thought. 37 years later...
A little bit of a jump.
Her saviors would arrive. By the mid-20th century, interest in preserving the legacy of the SS Great Britain was considered so important that a considerable amount of money was raised so she could return home to England. A crew from the HMS Endurance, an Antarctic research vessel, found the ship in sound enough condition to be towed back to her home port of Bristol on July 19th, 1970. When she was finally brought into port for the last time, the grand old lady was over 120 years old and had covered over 1 million miles in her lifetime.
Wow.
A painstaking restoration period would now begin. Spending decades in the waters of the frigid South Atlantic had taken its toll upon the once glorious ship. The restoration crew eagerly got to work. Among many other things, they patched up open holes to repair the hull, mended old woodwork, and painted the ship to look like it had been the day when it was launched over a century ago. It would take 3 years before the ship had been returned to her former beauty. Even though she was now safely nestled in a dry dock, the term dry in this case is not exactly accurate. Dry docks can be routinely drained and flooded in order to send a ship back into open water. But the Great Britain is unlikely ever to cross the seas again, obviously. I mean, unless you want to book a ticket, Adam. Huh?
I think I'll just enjoy the museum portion.
Okay.
Yep.
To make sure the hull does not experience any more corrosion, its new home would have to be as dry as a desert. To solve this problem, the bottom half of the Great Britain is encased by a thick layer of glass in order to hermetically preserve and seal one of the most vulnerable parts of the ship.
Wow.
So it's not in open water. So it's This is where she still is today. If you want to be a temporary passenger aboard the old ship, you can do so by visiting her at the SS Great Britain Museum in the city of Bristol, which I'm sure they've probably been financially hurting because of the pandemic. So if you are in England or you're going to England, you should probably check it out to make sure that stays there. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's they do rely on that traffic, those visitors, those tourists, and I think we all should take advantage of that whenever it presents itself.
Speaking of which, isn't it kind of nice that things are sort of normal again?
It is. I think it is. It's very refreshing, to say the least.
This would not be the only ship that Isambard Kingdom Brunel would design in his lifetime. Whether it be Beethoven's Ninth or Henry Ford's Model T, generally most artists' masterpieces are their last work. This would not be the case for Mr. Brunel. His last ship, the SS Great Eastern, would surpass the ship as the longest moving object in the world when it was launched in 1858, and would remain so for another 4 decades. The Great Eastern's greatest strength was also its weakness, its size. It was so big that when the Suez Canal opened in 1869, it could not pass through it, and had to travel around the Horn of Africa, which essentially made it obsolete at that point in time.
Oh my God! Yeah, absolutely. You have to design your ships around that size of that canal, otherwise you did obsolete yourself.
Now, can you imagine pulling up to the Suez Canal and just going, damn it, we don't fit.
No kidding. And telling the crew how much longer it's going to take to get to where you're going.
So this is the Ever Given.
Yeah, it is. Man.
In time, she would take on the questionable job of being refitted to be a floating casino until she was eventually torn apart and scrapped in 1889. We need those back.
Oh, no kidding.
We need floating casinos again.
Floating table games and maverick poker matches, I picture. Yeah. Anyway.
Even though the Great Eastern may have been grander in scale, her older sister would have a far more enduring legacy. The Great Britain is now considered to be the world's first modern transoceanic liner.
Wow.
Even though commercial airplanes have superseded the mighty liners of the water, today's liners of the sky owe part of their existence to the SS Great Britain. Even though the world may be much different now than it was in Brunel's time, in the end, one thing is for certain about his ship. Like most strong women in history, the tenacious girl from Brighton has survived because she has refused to let any obstacle or challenge beat her, and without a doubt, she will continue to let nothing beat her far into the future that she has also helped create. And that, Adam, is our story.
Well, that's an exceptional breakdown of such an iconic piece of history, especially when it comes to oceanic travel and the countries it involved and where it went. I mean, you think about Australia, how big that was to be able to travel to Australia and the amount of trips that boat made. That's incredible.
I mean, it sounds a little redundant now, I suppose, because we obviously have air travel, but this is obviously all they had back then.
Mm-hmm.
This was your Airbuses and your Boeings.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unless you wanted to swim.
That's about it. That is it.
Oh, so sometimes we talk about in our concluding comments here, movies this is featured in. This isn't a movie. It probably should be a movie. I don't know of anything this is in. What's your favorite boat movie, Adam?
That's a good question. I think most people would respond with Titanic, right? But I'm going to say Jaws. So that's my favorite.
Yeah. Captain Ron?
Yeah, there you go. That's another good one. Yeah.
Other than that, do you have any last concluding thoughts, Adam?
Just, with things opening up again, I encourage folks that did enjoy oceanic travel to look at that. And at the same time, when you get on one of these modern vessels today, take time to maybe listen to our podcast and reflect on the passage of time and what that travel was like for folks, 100 years ago or even 50 years ago versus today.
Definitely. I mean, next time I'm in England, I do plan on going there.
Yeah.
Now that let's start wrapping up here since we got that all covered. Of course, we appreciate your support on Patreon. We are on everything that you can basically listen to podcasts on. Please tell your friends about us. Please give us a good like. And for next week, here's our hint. It's a vehicle that flies, but it's not an airplane.
Ooh. Now that gets you thinking.
And with that said, we were going to catch you later. How's it sound?
Till next time.
All right. Signing out. Thank you, everyone.